Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our first edition of the Storytelling for Presenters program. And you will note that you all have your camera and microphone muted, or if it's not muted, I would ask you to mute it now. We are going to be doing today's presentation as a presentation. As you know, we're in the process of doing an alpha program. And so today's session is meant to be a webinar without interaction. So we're going to test this. And of course, as you know, we will be reaching out to each of you after each session to ask you for your feedback on the session. So please let us know how this worked for you. And we're learning as we go. So there might be a few bumps along the way, but we hope that it'll all go well. So just a little bit of housekeeping to start off. As I said, your video and audio will be off for the duration of the call. Also, I would suggest as you're watching that you put your screen into side-by-side mode. This is an option that Zoom gives you to allow you to see both me and the presentation. So you're not having to sort of look at the presenter in a tiny little screen. You'll find this mode by scrolling to the top of the Zoom window, and beside where it says you are viewing my screen, there's a view option button. Click there. At the bottom of the list, you'll see the side-by-side mode. This is the best way to view the presentation. So literally, you'll see a bar in the middle of the screen. You can make it smaller or bigger, so you can have the presentation and the presenter in equal sizes or whatever is most comfortable for you. Another small piece of housekeeping is that we will be sharing the recording and all of the tools for the program over in our TalkBack Slack channel. So if you haven't had a chance yet to sign up for the Slack channel, please do so at some point in the next day or so, because everything that you'll need are going to be there. It'll also be a place for you as a cohort to interact with each other and with us as the coaches. So with that said, let's get started for today's session. So let's start off with some intros. So I'm Andrea Sampson. I am the founder of Talk Boutique, and I'm an executive speakers coach. So my background, I spent almost 25 years working in advertising, working for some of the largest brands in the world and on some of the largest brands in the world. I was what was called a planner, which is really the strategist in the world of advertising. What that means is that my job was to understand the consumer, to deeply understand human behavior, to be able to take that knowledge, to understand what was happening in the marketplace, and from that to create the basis upon which many of the creative campaigns were built off of. So I would work directly with our creative teams, I would work with clients, and we would put together as a team the creative that would go out into the marketplace. Well, what I didn't know then, but have come to deeply understand, is that background was actually perfect for becoming a speaker's coach. And why? Well, when we think about talks and presentations, much of what we do is to directly impact our audiences, the people who are there. In fact, you know, everybody in our audience is a human. So by understanding human behavior and what drives change, as a speaker's coach, what I'm able to do is to find that core idea, work with speakers to articulate that core idea into something that's impactful for our audiences, whether those audiences be, you know, large rooms full of people where we've got thousands in an audience, or whether it be the more intimate presentations that we all have to give from time to time. So that's a little bit about me. I'm going to hand it over to my my co-host here, Ian Keeling. Ian is a senior coach at Talk Boutique, and I'll leave it for Ian to provide some background on him.
Hello, everyone. Yeah, my name is Ian Keeling. I came into this world through the arts. I am a science fiction and fantasy author, a career that I have pursued since I was 12 years old. I've also been a member of the improv community in Toronto for almost 30 years. And it was through my work as an actor and as an author that I began doing workshop facilitation, first in the arts, but then eventually that started moving over into the corporate sector. And over the last 20 years, I've had experience working with a variety of different sectors, from finance to tech to academic, both one-on-one coaching and workshop facilitation such as this. It's nice to meet everybody.
Thanks so much, Ian. And you'll get to know Ian quite well throughout this. What you will find as we go through the cadence over the next few weeks, you'll see both of us on most of the calls. Sometimes I'll be leading, and other times Ian will be leading. We also have our client team, and so they're on the call with us today, but they will stay in the background. We have Madison Cassidy, who is our administrator. She will be taking care of all of those administration needs, making sure that you have what you need, making sure that these recordings are done and out to you, and is there to support in whatever ways are needed from an administration standpoint. And Crystal Groom is our head of client success. And Crystal is there as a higher level support to help you if you've got technical issues, if you've got issues with the program overall, or are having some time, need to speak to one of the coaches. Crystal would be the person for you to go to. So we are very, very appreciative of both Madison and Crystal's support throughout this. Ian and I could not do programs like this without our client success team. So thank you to both of them, and you as this cohort will get to know how special both of them are. So let's just start off with an overview of what's going to happen over the next 6, almost 7 weeks. So the program consists of 9 short form webinars. So this is the first one. The intention is that these will be 20 minutes or less. Some of them could be as short as 10 minutes. They're meant for you to be able to consume very quickly. They will be delivered live on Tuesdays and Thursday mornings. I believe we do have a couple of Fridays in there, and Crystal will make sure that you have those invitations in your calendars. But again, if you're not available to come live, the recordings will always be available for you. And even if you are here live, the recordings are still there for you to go back and rewatch. We will have 3 online group coaching sessions. These are live, and these you do need to attend these. Again, they are in the Tuesday-Thursday cadence. And both Ian and I will be on these calls live, and we're there to help you. So the purpose of the group coaching sessions is for you to bring the homework that gets assigned in between each of the live webinars, and also to do some interactive work with you to help bring some of the didactic training that we're going through in these seminars to life, so that there is more interaction. And it's also an opportunity for you to work with your peers. One of the things that we've learned over the years of working with speakers is that while we as the coaches are able to help you make sense of and to focus your presentations, often the peers are even more helpful when you're in the process of writing out your talk or your presentation. So peer coaching as well as speaker coaching is essential, and those group coaching sessions will allow you to start that. And we encourage you to create relationships with others in the cohort so you can continue that outside of these formalized sessions. There will be one 30-minute individual coaching session with a master speakers coach. That would be me. That will happen after the 4th webinar. And the reason for that is the first 4 webinars are very much focused on content development. So we want you to get a lot of the basics down before you start working one-on-one with a coach. So that 30-minute session, you will schedule individually. Crystal or Madison will be sending out to you a link directly into my calendar, and you will book it as is convenient for you. And I look forward to working with each and every one of you. And then finally, there'll be a group showcase session. So this will be our final session. It's actually happening, I believe it's May 19th. It's in the, it's on the 7th week of this program. So we're sort of 6.5 weeks in. It's a Tuesday, and each of you will deliver live a 5 to 7 minute presentation. Now, you can choose to have visuals or not visuals. That will be up to you. But we, as the coaches, will be marking you on your presentation. So we have an evaluation. So both Ian and I will be present. You will do your presentation. We will do an evaluation and create a written scorecard with written feedback. You will get this after the session. And if you pass, and we'll determine what that looks like, you will get a designation as a Talk Boutique Level 1 certified speaker. So thank you again for agreeing to do this. As you can see, this is there's a lot to this program, and we're really excited to work with you to make sure that you get the maximum benefit from what it is we do and from what it is you need. So what does the learning experience look like? What are the things that you're going to learn throughout the course of this program? So we're going to start off with story. Story is such an important part of the program. So storytelling, and then we move into actually building a talk, which is different from storytelling. There is a story structure and there is a narrative structure, and we'll talk you through the difference of these two things and how and when to use one or the other and how to combine both. We'll then look at things like emotional language. When you're storytelling, using emotion is highly effective and important. And we're going to talk about the neuroscience behind using emotional language and what story does to your brain. We're then going to go into body language, performance, stage presence. We'll do a lot of teaching around how to use your body so that your entire being is conveying the message that you want your audience to hear. We're then going to talk about voice and how voice is one of the many tools that you should be using when you're presenting. And then we'll get into visualization, so the visuals that you use, memorization, and then finally stress management, because who doesn't get a little stressed before they do a big presentation? And Ian is a master of helping us to understand that. So I think Ian's going to be doing that one. So we do have some rules of engagement, and we think they're important only because we want you to maximize what you take away from this. So the first one is to step outside your comfort zone. No one is a natural presenter. That's the first thing I want you all to hear. You know, we see people who seem to be able to get on stage and just simply present. And while some people have more natural talent in that way than others, it is not something that you're born with. It is something you learn. And so the way you learn it is by taking risks. And so we all have to step a little bit out of our comfort zone through this process. Unlearn. Now, what do I mean by unlearn? Well, I'm assuming that most of you have done a presentation or two in your life, and maybe 100 or two. The reality is we all have habits and ways in which we do things that are helpful and unhelpful. And for the purposes of this program, what I'm going to ask you to do is to just put aside the things you already know. Much of what you already know, you will likely bring back into what you do at the end of this program. But for the purposes of the program, put it aside so you can learn some new things. You can come to each session unbiased and accept what you're hearing without a filter of what you already do. As I said, I'm not asking you to throw that away, because I know that many of you are likely very good presenters, and you will bring back what you already know into the newness of what you've just learned, and that will build on top of, as opposed to replacing. There will be no bystanders. We are going to get you interacting through the group coaching sessions and through the actual presentation. So participate, use the Slack channel, reach out to your coaches. Be present in what's happening. Now, I would be remiss as a former TEDx Toronto coach and Singularity University coach to not encourage you to take risks. Be bold. Your content is the way in which you will impact other humans. So when you are developing your content, take risks. Be bold. That is your gift to the world, because presenting is always a gift. It's a gift of your knowledge, it's a gift of who you are, and it's a gift of the vision that you see for all of us. So take risks and be bold. And then finally, have fun. It's when we think of public speaking, often we forget that it can be fun. And Ian is our improv expert, and we're going to try and bring some of those improv exercises to our group coaching, and also we may in fact give you some homework that will involve improv. So have fun with that and learn how to incorporate that into your presentations, because when you're having fun in front of a room, the audience knows and they have fun too. And that's what's most important. All right. So I'm going to ask each of you right now to just take a moment and grab a piece of paper or open a Word document on your computer. And I want you to just write down what your expectations are for this program. What do you want to take away? I am going to ask you to share this in the Slack channel. So we'll see what your expectations are, and this helps us to understand where you are and what it is you want from the program. So I'm just going to pause for a moment now and let you write down those expectations. Okay, you can keep doing that after the webinar, but I did want to give you a moment to think about it before we moved into the first part of this program. So as you're thinking about those expectations and what it is you want to take away, let's start off with a question. Why do we tell stories? Stories are the way in which we as humans communicate. Stories are the basis for how we give each other information. Stories are natural for humans. We have been telling stories since we were sitting around a campfire in caves. Stories are the way in which we create meaning in our lives. And what I like to say is that stories are carriers for ideas. Stories are the way in which we come to common understanding. What do I mean carriers for ideas? Well, think about any TED Talk that you've ever seen, and I'm assuming everybody on this call has watched at least one TED Talk. What is it that they all have in common? Well, they have two things in common. One, they always have a story, and two, they always have an idea. And what does that look like? Well, we like to call this the idea to impact approach. And it's a model that we created here at Talk Boutique. And it's an important model for you as you're thinking about developing out your presentations. So we start with a story. We start with an idea. What is it you want to communicate? So as you think about the presentations that you're going to create over the next 7 weeks, what is the idea that you want to communicate. It could be a business idea that you're pitching to investors. It could be a world-changing idea that you're pitching to a TEDx somewhere in the world. Or it could be an idea that impacts the department or the company that you're working for, and you want the people who have impact on your budgets to make a different decision for you. So what is your idea? Now, when you combine idea and story, what we do is we create interest. So think about any TED Talk, as I said, you've seen. So what happens? You sit in front of your computer, because that's the way in which most of us consume TED Talks. And when you finish watching that, you're interested. You sort of lean in and you think, oh, that's really, really interesting. But if it stops there, if you've only taken your idea and wrapped it in story, you create that lean in moment, but it doesn't really go anywhere. What's key, and what the third element that is absolutely essential to creating impact with your idea and using your story as a maximum vehicle for impact, is conversation. Conversation is the lubricant that moves your idea through society. When you add conversation and you have an idea where you're talking about it, you create an understanding. Now that idea and conversation, that understanding, what happens is you're now understanding it in the way that the person you're speaking to it understood it. So again, go back to those TED Talks. You may have taken something away from, let's say, the Brene Brown TED Talk or the Simon Sinek TED Talk. And I may have taken something slightly different. And when we talk about it, we start to understand what each other believed about that TED Talk. And suddenly that idea has been expanded and extended. That conversation has created something new out of that idea. The other thing that happens in that moment is we create connections between us. And when we have story, idea, and conversation that has created deep interest, common understanding, and connection, that's when we create impact. So think about the presentations you're going to do. Do they include an idea? Have you built story into them? And how are you leaving opportunity for conversation? Have you put something in there that sparks that conversation? Have you allowed for pieces to maybe not be fully flushed out so that conversation can impact it in a new way? So the idea to impact model is incredibly important, because ultimately it's your audience who is consuming your presentation. And what do you already know about your audience? As I said, this audience could be, as we see here, a room full of people. This is actually one of the salons that we've done at Talk Boutique. And this was one of our speakers interacting directly with that audience. And what you need to ask yourself is, who is your audience? Are they your peers in the company you work for? Are they investors? Are they a group of change makers who are looking for ways in which to impact the world? What do you already know about them? What do they think? And how can you, as the person in front of the room, influence them? And that's a really important question, because the next thing you need to think about is, what is the purpose of your presentation? Are you there to simply inform them? It could be that you have new information. As we think about where the world is today, there's a lot of informational presentations happening right now on where this pandemic is sitting, the statistics, the information. Now, those who are doing it well are using story and idea, but it's an informational presentation. Sometimes you're there to inspire them. And we see this a lot through the very large presentations. So most TED Talks, as an example, are inspirational. We see a lot of inspirational talks. They're a little different than motivational, because inspirational is to sort of help you to think slightly different about the way in which you transact in the world, whereas motivational is trying to get you to move differently. So inspirational talks are very common right now, and we hear a lot of inspirational talks. Influence. So are you there to influence? Now, this we see a lot in boardroom presentations, because in boardroom presentations, often you're not able to make the final decision, but your job is to provide all of the information so that those in the level who are at that level of decision maker can in fact make those decisions. So you're influencing a decision. And then finally, persuade. Now, again, in those boardroom presentations, sometimes you are in a persuasive role, especially if you are if you're selling something, you are in a persuasive conversation. You are moving your audience to an outcome that you want them to think or do something different. So persuasive talks move beyond just influencing them to think differently into persuading them to do something different. So choosing what the purpose of your talk is important early on, because it will impact the language you use, it will impact your call to action, and it will impact the stories you tell. So from purpose, then we go into that core idea. Do you have one? Have you thought about what that core idea could be? Now, core ideas are hard. Having worked with many TED speakers, what I can tell you is that this is the area that we spend most of our time, is just defining that idea. So what does a core idea look like? Well, we have this saying, don't tell me what you know, tell me why and how you know it. Don't tell me what you know, tell me why and how you know it. And this came from actually a TED speaker, Drew Dudley, who is one of the top leadership speakers in the world, and he's one of the top on TED.com as well. Drew, when Drew said this, what he meant was the what is the facts, the how and the why are the story. So we do need to tell them the facts. But if we start with the facts, the challenge with that is that we lose them right out of the gates. It's the how and the why. Those are the context. That's the context for your idea. So what we really need is not one or the other or a couple of these. We need all three. We actually do need the what, the how, and the why. Because the what is your topic. The what is the main idea. It's the thing you're going to talk about. It's the reason you're there, but it's dispassionate and descriptive. It's often just nouns. The what is really important. However, if you left it at a what, no one would listen to your talk. When you add in the how, that's where the what starts to live, because the how is related to your what. It describes the actions you actually want to take on the what. It often is what has motivated you to give this presentation. You have come up with an idea of how to create a change, or how to do something differently, or how to motivate people, or there could be 1,000 other reasons of the how. But the how is the place that often as a speaker we start. What we're going to ask you to do is to move it into the what, to define that. But equally as important, and in fact, I might even argue is more important, is the why. The why is always in the context of the what and the how. And it is the change or impact you want to create. It's the outcome of your what and your how. And this is what connects you and your audience, because the why is the thing your audience is most going to attach to. You as the speaker are likely going to get really excited about the what and the how, because as it comes together, it's going to define this core idea that you have. And when you connect it to a why, what you've done is you've created an intrinsic engagement with your audience. So when you bring your what, your how, and your why together, they form the basis of that core idea. So that is all of the training that we're going to do today. The what, the how, and the why, and conversation are things I want you to think about. And I want you to think about it through the lens of story. Now, we haven't gone deep into story yet, but we have talked about what story can do. So here's what I want you to do between now and when you watch your next webinar. Is I want you to create a short story, no longer than 2 minutes in direct duration. This could be the story of you waking up this morning and doing your commute to the living room, because no one's commuting to an office anymore, so I know that that didn't happen. But that said, it could be a short story about how difficult it is to work from home and parent your children. I want you to kind of just formulate that quickly. Tell it to a friend. Could be anyone. Could be your spouse. Could be the next person you're speaking to on a Zoom call. Up to you who you tell it to. But just tell it to them. It should be no longer than 2 minutes. And then get them to tell it back to you. So when you tell it to them the first time, simply say to them, hey, I'm doing this course and I would really like to tell you a story because that's my homework. Do you have a moment? Can you listen? Tell them the story. Now, say to them, okay, can you tell me back what I just told you? Now, this is really important. Don't set it up that you're going to ask them to tell it back to you. Make it a little bit of a surprise. What I'm asking you to do here is to hear your own story, because I want you to notice what they tell you. So that's all we have today. So our next session is on Thursday at 9:30 a.m. For those of you who will be joining us live, again, the recording will be available for you following that session. Make sure that you join the Slack channel so that you can get all of this information as you need it. And feel free to reach out via the Slack channel if you have any questions. We'll make sure that the homework is posted there for all of you. And have an amazing day today, and go out and impact the world through your conversations, because we do believe here at Talk Boutique that that is the way in which we will change the world. So thank you for your attention today. It's been my absolute pleasure. Have a great day.